This is one that I thought was super interesting. I applaud the effort. I don't know that this is ever really going to work, but New York has actually passed a law where applicants to get a concealed carry license in the state of New York will have to hand over their social media accounts. And this is not something that they're trying to do. This is something that's already passed. So I think this goes into effect in the next couple of months.
In September. Yeah.
So, yeah, what is your take on this? That go get a concealed carry license, and you have to turn over your Instagram, your TikTok, your Facebook. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
They dancing around the real problem. Stop it.
That part. But also when you look at these last few mass shootings and a lot of, I don't know if it's majority, I have no data on that, but a lot of mass shootings, it was what's I'm looking for?
Breadcrumbs.
Foretold by the stuff that the people were telling you they were going to do.
Premeditated, but foreshadowed. That's what I'm looking for by these people's social media. You know what I mean? It was out there literally for the world to see that these people were not stable, that they were planning something, catastrophic. Like, it was out there. So, and for everybody to always go back and now once it happens and once there's 19, murdered children in Uvalde, now everybody wants to look at the social media and say, well, oh, wow. Yeah. I guess he was kind of troubled. You think so?
Right.
I hate that New York did this without actually putting any teeth in it, because they passed it, yes, but they also did what they didn't do is supply any additional funding to make it easier for law enforcement to actually do it. They haven't designated any special, agency or committee or anybody else that will actually be responsible for this, because the sheriffs are like, we ain't doing this. We don't have no time for this to do this with everything else we doing. We're not gonna go look at somebody's Facebook.
And if they got time, they still ain't no guarantee they're going to do it, because the most recent shooting in Highland Park in Chicago, people was telling them on social media and about all the things that he was saying and doing, and then the police sit up there in a press conference is like, well, at the time we didn't know if it was credible.
We didn't know if it was credible. That's always the thing. And it's a shame. I like you said, Rob, I applaud the effort, because we got to do something. But to your point, Terrance, we just don't need assault weapons in the United States, number one. And we need much, much stricter gun laws in general.
Oh, yeah. And I think this was just for concealed carry. So this is just handguns. This doesn't touch anything else. So what
was also in there, I do want to talk about what else they had in there. The new law also requires several hours of safety training, some character reference, an in-person interview before you can get this permit. Just social media. They are actually trying to do some other things to make sure the person is fit to carry a gun. But it's just
one of the things, Stephanie, you said was that they didn't add any additional funding for this
at all.
I'm just going to put this out there. Did they not add any additional funding because they know that this is not going to win a First Amendment fight? It's like, so here's the thing. I love to hear all the stuff about the Second Amendment, but what's before the Second Amendment? The First Amendment. It is like freedom of speech. So you're telling me I have to go snitch on myself potentially? Who in their right mind? Actually, it maybe is a good question to ask. Who in their right mind? Because if you're right mind, you're probably not going to go get these, these things and shoot people up with them. But who would go? And I've got all this stuff where I've been, Proud Boys or whatever it is. You're doing all this stuff in your social media. Why on earth would you actually let the authorities know that that's you actually doing it? I can't see how they're going to enforce that. Number one. Then number two is that even if you were, can you be compelled to do that? They have a law now, but to me, this just looks like a law that is just there so that as soon as they try to use it to do something, I'm not sure what they would do. This is going to be challenged.
My assumption is they're kind of using it as a quote unquote background check, because in addition to, I don't know what they check in a background check, credit, maybe they check your proof of residency, whatever is included
Arrest
in a
records, I'm sure.
arrest records. Right. Maybe they're looking at it as, well, this is no different than a social media background check. And before we give you this gun, we're going to comb over your social media and make sure you don't have, suggestive posts as far as violence or whatever the case may be. Maybe that's how they get around this. Well, you don't have to give us access. We just need to comb through and check before we then hand you this thing to make sure you're on the up and up. I'm just
and I think it's easy enough because they talk about right to privacy and all other stuff and the fine line, but I think it's easy. I think there's a big who even is a known white supremacist and posts nonsense on their social media versus some of these people who have done shootings saying I'm going to the high school at 10 o'clock to do this, and this. Like literally some of that stuff has been spelled out in detail on some of these platforms. And to me, you forfeited your right to privacy when you do that. That's like yelling fire in a crowded room. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's like, and that's the kind of thing that that I think law enforcement can make a case for why it's important to look at this stuff, because the people that are doing it, they're not just listening to crazy music or talking about. They're literally saying on the anniversary of Columbine, I'm going back up to the school, and these are the people I'm looking for, and this is what's going to happen, and then I'm gonna shoot myself, and then blah blah. Like they literally are outlining their step-by-step plan. So I think at a minimum, we can all agree that at least that would be a worthwhile reason to check before you allowed a permit like this. But
yeah, no, I'm going to talk completely out of the other side of my mouth. So who would ever sign up to give social media stuff? Anybody who has to go through an FBI background check. You're actually doing that. It's probably a very similar looking document.
I had clearances when I worked for Lockheed, and I had to give them all my social media. So yeah.
So yeah, I've had the same thing. Now, we research and we find out, okay, what do I legally have to give you? I have to give you my social media accounts. I give you my social media accounts. They're all locked down. I have pictures of children on there. I don't allow anybody to see that. It's not family and friends, and they're okay with that. But I think it is just going through the exercise. You got to give them something. And when you're talking about like these FBI background checks, they're not just looking on the stuff that you told them about. That's just helping them get started. They're doing a thorough trying to find out who you are, how you think, and whether or not you should get clearance to go into some place that could be
to Stephanie's point. There's a whole bureau that does that. Ain't no local police officer or no local, state government official checking your Instagram before they give you this permit, which goes back to, okay, what resources, what entity have you stood up to solely be responsible for this portion in order to give it the care that it needs for you to identify something that may be like, hey, let's let's dig a little bit deeper, or no, you can't get this gun.
Yeah, in most states it's sheriffs.
Yeah, and they ain't gonna do it. I also like at the very end of the article, there was a question about, can this be done in an anti-racist way? Because it slides into the territory of surveillance really quickly when you start talking about Black and brown folks. And, there's a culture there. Like we got teenagers, 16-year-olds posing with guns for prom pictures. So would that be something that now precludes me from being able to get a license to carry a weapon because I did that, because that is what's cool in my hood and it's a part of my culture and everybody did it. Should that be something that precludes me from getting a gun license? So, it does become a slippery slope, you start talking about taking black and brown folks into consideration.
Yeah, like I really, just like I said earlier, I think this is one of those laws that they pass. It's like, let's see if we can get this passed. We're not putting any money to it because we know it's going to be challenged, but let's just see, let's put our finger up and, lick it, put it up in the wind, see which way the wind is blowing. Can we actually get this passed? They got it passed. But I think the first time the state of New York actually tries to use it, that they are going to, be sued. And so, like I said, I applaud the effort. And this is just my personal belief. Background checks. What is it? Over 70% of Americans think that that's a good idea. Just do background checks.
I think
that
they
way,
wanted to get credit for doing something, and I mean, this probably wasn't it.
So I just thought it was really interesting. No, it's like I'm reading through this, and it's like that sounds good, but what about your First Amendment rights to it's like I don't think those get trumped here. So
America.